Awesome. Well, Brandon, appreciate you being on here. It's good to catch up. It's been a while.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see you. Like the fresh cut. So you're going a little bit shorter on the hair these days.
I alternate. I feel like yeah, I'm not like old enough where I have like a style that's in between. So I either go really long or just short and kind of just go back and forth. But yeah, great having you on here. You're in Miami right now, right?
Yes, sir. Beautiful Sunshine State. Yeah, I mean it's a great time to be here. It's always a great time to be here, literally all year
Yeah.
round. It's like 70 to 80 degrees, and I mean, as you know, I mean, tech's having a moment. The city's having
Yeah.
a, its renaissance. So it's been really fantastic.
Yeah, no, definitely want to talk more about that. Awesome. Well, yeah. So really free flowing. I guess the way I normally start out is just kind of like an overview. Love Brandon for you to share. A little bit of like your journey. Since high school or whenever you started getting into entrepreneurship, and like high level. That path and where you're at today.
Yeah, for sure, man. And absolutely also interested in digging into some more Miami
Yeah.
conversation. I feel like, I'm that like annoying Miami friend who's constantly tweeting at people to like come move to Miami, but with an asterisk after I actually get to, get a mortgage on a home. All you guys trying to compete me for a home, you can stay in New York till I finish that up.
Yeah.
But yeah, taking it from the top, born and raised in Miami, Florida, and it takes a while to really realize, kind of how your journey has led you to the place that you're at. But it is quite clear to me that, yeah, and I mean, today I love building teams. I love building consumer products, basically, or products that, everyday people can hold and use and experience. And again, it took me a while to really realize that I've had a lot of the elements that kind of brought me there really early on. Shocking to learn that I was, in middle school and high school, it's like you're focused on, the STEM fields and, eventually in college found computer science and technology. But, from a very early age, I was also all about those like extracurriculars and clubs. And I just loved working in groups of
Yeah.
people. There's like the, Science Honor Society and Science Fair, and then in high school, I started our math club and, we went and we would compete. And then, part of the Spanish Honor Society, and then, building like a volunteer
Mm.
org and things like that. It's just like I was always very passionate about just working with a group of people to build something, greater or other than, as the original quote goes, other than the sum of its parts. And so, that started in high school, but then went to college. And again, my love of math and science was really shaken a little bit when I realized like what I really loved doing is just building, and falling into kind of the computer science, you know, um, hamster wheel, if you will. Just fell in real deep. Started building stuff for myself, always building games, and then building like whether it was an artificially intelligent personal trainer that would like give you feedback on your squats or push-ups, or like a personal training coach, or like some fitness app or something like that. I was just always tinkering, always loved you know building out these products that I could use and that I was interested in using, and could kind of visualize, build, get feedback on, share it with people. But then of course in college also like couldn't get away from the orgs. And I mean, this, we met in basis. But I was, I joined like Solar Car, and I was doing that for like a year and a half, 2 years, and then I was part of AK Sci, led AK Sci, through lots of different positions, and part of Basis, and that was an incredible experience because at this point I'm like, 20, running like 10 teams of, 10 people, 15 executives with like 100 people volunteering. We have all sorts of programs. We're generating hundreds of thousands in revenue a year. We have a budget of like $1 million a year. We have a business development program. We have like, so all these different programs. We have internal, basically educational programs. We're running science fairs, or rather career fairs. And so I just, couldn't stay away from it. Just loved it so much. Loved, building teams, building strategy for these teams, organizations, understanding how people work. And every time really found a more special opportunity to refine myself as a teammate, as a leader, as a, uh, an architect of organizations, to be
Yeah.
honest, is what I really, some of the things I love to do. And then after college, I mean, journey, my professional journey followed something similar. I had a quick stunt at a hedge fund for, a little bit less of a year. I mean, I had a buddy who was previously on the public equities team in Sequoia. It's basically like 3 of the 5 dudes running that team. Most folks don't know Sequoia Equity actually has a public equities group, and they decided to leave, start their own hedge fund, and I basically came in and was building a big data system for them, try to predict top level KPIs ahead of earnings reports. You know how it goes. I mean, that was awesome. Very, very kind of engineering heavy. A little bit of a shift from the things I've kind of described to be my interest and passion. But within a few months, basically less than a year, I realized this was a very cool technical challenge, which is what lured me in initially, but is a departure from the things I was really excited about. Also, in a small team, hedge fund, the way it scales, it's less about building an org. It's in fact, you want to keep it small. Everyone makes their paper. And then, found an opportunity with Jay to basically build Mira. And Mira was a social commerce app in beauty focused on helping customers just find the right products for them. Tied to technology more closely than you'd think, just because it was all about coalescing, aggregating all these different sources of information, products, catalogs into one place. So when, a customer comes in and says like, hey, I may be, a dark-skinned woman looking for a good demi-matte foundation, it's going to work well on my oily skin. We can actually surface the best results across, every basically e-commerce catalog that exists. And that was just an incredible, that was 4 years of digging in deep, building a consumer product within, a fiercely competitive industry. On one side, you have Sephora and Ulta and the beauty retailers. On the other half, you have Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and, basically like PhDs, building algorithms to predict their customers, right? And so that was an incredible experience, basically running COO and co-founders are running like marketing, engineering, and product. And, at some point we grew to a team of like 16 or so. And then we're fortunate enough to, I think see enough traction and customer excitement to basically get acquired in the last year or so, 9 months at this point, by FemTech Health. And FemTech is basically a startup that is trying to deliver continuous care for women across the health and beauty spectrum. It's a wide spectrum, but part of the thesis is that this is in fact a spectrum, and there's an opportunity to bring consolidated set of services to this industry. And so part of that is actually Awesome Woman, which is the healthcare brand that's being launched by FemTech Health this week, actually. Wow. And then the other part of that is Birchbox, which is, the pioneer in subscription services, basically the first folks to do subscription box model. And that is actually currently the product I'm running. So I'm VP of product at Birchbox and kind of driving forward a lot of, that strategy. And we can't give too much detail there, but there's some really exciting stuff coming in 2022. And I think there's an incredible opportunity with Birchbox, which, as you know, is a household name, basically at this point, household brand name, to, I think, reinvent that subscription model again, which is, as you know, kind of has been on the decline for the last few years.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, a lot to dig into, and I always like catching up with you, Brandon, because I feel like you've done a lot, and also you've been like you said, brave enough to get into consumer, which I feel like very few people do. But to be honest, that's where like the magic happens. You're building products for people. I think kind of going earlier to what you were talking about in the beginning, stereotypical, but I feel like, so I know you, and I feel like a lot of times you're an amazing engineer. You can build anything, but you're also social. You like being a part of teams and groups. That's probably maybe where the consumer side comes. I don't know. But I feel like a lot of times if you're someone's very like engineering focused, they usually do not care about consumers much, or it's not as interesting to them. Yeah. So I feel like maybe that could be an explanation for why you love, because you're someone I know who literally, like, Brandon does everything. You can lead, manage, can build. So that's always something that I was impressed by of you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, they're tools, right? And we'll get into this later, but I think there's just so much fulfillment in creation, and some creation is simple and it's kind of like easy dopamine hits, right? You like make a thing with clay, and that can be not to kind of basically undervalue that type of creation. There's the simplicity is beautiful and gorgeous in and of itself, but then there are much more complex forms of creation that I think go to something like creating a consumer product, and all the creation that goes in between. I mean, they are just interesting to me. I just like creating things,
Yeah.
and sometimes they're very visceral and in front of you, and sometimes they're much more complex things that you create: an organization, a
Yeah.
culture, right, a way of working, a philosophy, a set of values. Like these are all things that humans are constantly
Yeah.
creating, and I think there's just, and for me, it's like I just find value in
Yeah.
creation, and if I can, ultimately create, I think things are benefiting other people. I mean, that's really where that intersection is really special. And I think in the consumer segment, it's just it's such a tough
Yeah.
problem. I think it's a really exciting set of challenges to tackle. And for me, again, it's just like it doesn't matter what form of creation it is. There's a lot of meaning for it, and they're all just tools and
Yeah.
languages for you to use to drive impact.
Yeah. 100, yeah. Absolutely. And someone similarly, I've worked on a lot of different problems, and I just love the process of it. And like each time you get better. And to be honest, around the management side, I mean, I feel like I used to like look down on that and say, oh, that's all bullshit. Like, management had to manage people, but I've never
Yeah.
gotten to the scale of managing like teams of people at all, but I've gotten like, inched over more and more over time, and also interacting with different people. But and to truly be successful, you have to be able to organize and lead and understand, how groups of people interact. And that's super valuable. I mean, like you literally, I mean, if you can you can build a product really well, but you can't build a team, you're not going to go anywhere. So I feel like
Yeah.
I've seen Brand, like you've, been building different products, and then every instance has been more and more organization around it. I mean, Mira, you guys had, under 20 people. I mean, it's a massive team. Organizing that is like guys in their 20s, and then now being part of a bigger organization. That's insane. I'm sure there's so much learning that you get from that.
Yeah, man. And I mean, this was, FemTech is it's a hell of a journey. It's super cool
Yeah.
because we have such a diverse cast. I mean, really, it's like on the Awesome Woman side, which is a healthcare
Yeah.
brand. It's like, we literally have like scientists, like people like do like, in labs,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
doing studies and fabricating, products and, basically really, I think bringing a different
Mm.
discipline, to the table. And in fact, the discipline I, really value because it's when you're just working in the digital space for, a physical consumer
Mhm.
product, it's like you're just so
Yeah.
limited, right? I mean, you're basically like in many ways, like a lot of these, beauty brands are very much so marketing driven, and like there's very little innovation in the actual like product offering. And so yeah, it's just really excellent to be, in an environment like FemTech. And like you said, I mean, new set of challenges, working with a very, very broad group of
Yeah.
people. And I mean, through, there's several basically acquisitions and mergers that happening over the last year.
Yeah.
So, that's been just an incredible experience to go through basically 4+ companies coming together, and being able to lead a lot of that and literally rebuilding,
Yeah.
organizations from the inside
Yeah.
out. It's just been crazy. And it's been really fantastic, to be honest, to just be able to bring a lot of the learnings we had at Mira, and bring it to just this much, much wider
Yeah.
scale. At Mira, I think we focus a lot on, you know, building high quality digital experiences and basically creating the value for the
Yeah.
customer through the digital experience, because it was all about curation, helping you find like the existing, products and kind of building this universal shopping
Yeah.
cart. Whereas now at Birchbox, there's a very, very real kind of differentiated physical offering, and being able to pair that with the digital, I think is, just really, really exciting. Not that, of course, I mean, at Mira, we're selling physical
Yeah.
products,
Yeah.
but it's just different when the innovation happens on the digital
Mhm.
surface versus both the digital and physical surface,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and I think you need both nowadays, right, for a good
Yeah, I mean,
consumer product
consumers are getting
strategy.
more demanding. It's not, it needs to look pretty and work. It can't just be one of the two.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
that's super cool. And I definitely want to highlight. I remember being at Coho at Stanford, and you were showing me like Mira 1.0, and you're like, "Hey, man, I'm going to get into the beauty industry," and I'm like, "What?" I kind of want to go back to that. I mean, like, and yeah, and like I think it's funny because like we all have different journeys, and who knows what's right, but I've definitely taken a different path of just not wanting to work at a big company for my 20s and just go in and try things. And you did that. I looked up to you for that. Yeah, I guess like I'd love to hear more about that founding story around Mira, and what you guys also learned getting to the beauty space, because I feel like that's an industry that I don't know anything about. Maybe I should know more about it, but yeah, I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, I mean, potentially one of the more surprising things that you'd learn right off the bat is that it's actually, I mean, there's like all this shit about like, Twitter's toxic and
Yeah.
there's all this tea and like but like generally the beauty community is very welcoming. And at least for us, they were very excited to have folks who were just very
Yeah.
interested in solving their
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah.
And we're very happy to kind of participate, and they're very excited to tell you about their interests and the things that they love and the things that they like and don't like. And so again, generally very positive, very welcoming community. I think a community with very high standards. Again, because we talked about that fierce competition. I mean, in terms of both the digital technologies that they use, but then also the brands that
Yeah.
they associate with, and the storytelling that exists, right? And so I think that those are, it's both you're balancing like incredibly high quality like software and software
Yeah.
craftsmanship that needs to go into the things that you build, because quite frankly, at some point, like if you're building digital experiences for these beauty customers, like I'm not going to watch any video. I don't care how helpful the video is if it doesn't load quickly. It's just like it just does not matter. And so it's that bar, but then also making sure that you kind of get the brand right,
Yeah.
and that you're telling that one message and that people understand what you're about and they understand why you're an exciting brand and why they should basically do business with you and why they want their identity to an extent, somehow be associated with you, whether through something very small like ordering one product or through something like, really advocating for the brand.
Yeah. No, and I and I actually like I think it's really cool. We touched on with like getting into beauty. I think I've been thinking about this a lot recently. Like that, there are a lot of industries that would love. Like I feel like tech people or product builders or whatever you want to call it, people from like Stanford especially, go into the same industries broadly, like SaaS or enterprise or
FinTech, SaaS, at this point,
fintech,
healthcare.
yeah, healthcare. It's going to be more and more, but I feel like it's exciting, and there's actually more untapped opportunity when you leverage those building skills, like product people get into an industry that like before people didn't get into for some reason. So I feel like, I mean, I've experienced that, and I've seen it with other friends getting to like construction or entertainment or whatever. It's like, oh wow, like most of the people in this industry didn't go to college, don't know how to build anything, and they have tons of problems. And you're coming in now and you want to join our world. Yeah, there'll be a little bit of like criteria and like make sure you're legit. But beyond that, they're like, oh wow, you can build things, and we can finally, solve our problems there, and they love that. And I actually think more people should look into like less ventured industries, because there's a lot of opportunity. I mean, you could build simple software for dentists or something, and they would like love you. Like, oh wow, like you can improve this and you know how to build this, and I don't have to, pay someone $100,000 or never get it done. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, innovation is at the intersection, right, of like all the different fields, or like true innovation, I think, happens when you bring different fields together and you basically cross-pollinate. Right. And I think that's, and I mean, it's just more, I think it's just hard to identify those problems because there is so much value in having experience in these different industries. And it's just like the industries that are immediately around us are like just squeezed dry, of course. But then the other industries are the ones that, the young, coastal elite do not necessarily interface with every day, like truck drivers, right? Where maybe there's more innovation. So obviously it's like it requires a little bit more intentionality to really pursue and explore some of those different industries. And sometimes it's like, even if you felt like this was a good industry, how do you even get started? Like, I mean, just go out there and get it. Just go talk to a bunch of people, but it's like when you're doing a bit of a breadth first search, I think it can be stagnating for some folks.
Definitely. I mean, I think it'd be interesting if like if you went the other way around. I've thought about this, like where industry people with the means to like pay for the product themselves and like be a big enterprise client reach out to like builders in college or, tech people or whatever. And it's other way around where they're posing their problems and then like contracts almost, the people bid on them. And like there should be more of a consulting approach where like you do get, because it's like Andreessen Horowitz, like software is eating the world. It's like feel like initially it makes sense. I mean, probably how you have to start, but it was like software applications for software versus like software for other industries. Like, is how much can we hyper optimize like product tools for a product team at a software company? Like, like like, the margins are getting smaller. But no, that's awesome. Yeah, and I guess like with beauty, like I don't know that much about it. I like what were some like interesting things that you learned like getting into, like I guess like high level, like what is beauty? Like what are the high level categories? Who runs it? Like are there any like people behind like, like curtains or whatever and like smoke filled rooms that just like run this shit and like no one knows about? Like I don't know anything about the beauty industry.
Yeah, I mean, so, there are about 5 major conglomerates that actually run like the physical beauty industry, and that's basically LVMH, which includes
Yeah.
Sephora and, Louis Vuitton and a bunch of luxury brands. It's Estee Lauder, it's L'Oreal, it's Shiseido, and I think those are the biggest beauty conglomerates. But then you also have like, the
Yeah.
Unilevers and the Procter and Gambles and all these folks, and then you have a bunch of independents, right? So it is like a fairly small number of like big conglomerates that own a lot of the brands. Like LVMH, for example, runs like Kendo brands and like Fenty Beauty and like a lot of these other brands as well that get featured in Sephora, and then they buy up a bunch of anytime a hot brand is coming up, they buy it up.
And is
So
there a connection? You said Procter and Gamble. Sorry to cut you off. Like, is there a connection between chemical companies or like CPG / chemical manufacturers who can like do perfume at scale and like cosmetics with like beauty, and they have like a beauty subsidiary? Is that like a connection or?
Good question. I mean, I don't think that is necessarily. I'm sure there's
Yeah,
synergies
yeah,
in a lot of these consumer companies. Again, like Johnson and Johnson, it's doing so. There are a lot of synergies, but I wouldn't say that there are a lot of like chemical first, like manufacturers that then are like going into
yeah,
beauty. Obviously their partnerships are struck, and like beauty companies will own their own
yeah,
sometimes, their own manufacturing facilities, but yeah, I wouldn't say there's anything stand out there that comes to mind here, but I'm also not like, an expert on that part of the
yeah,
ecosystem. It is worth noting like this is a physical product, but then beauty is also like, you know, that's those are the folks manufacturing the products and getting the money, but from the product sales, but you also have a massive content industry around this. You have an influencer and entertainment industry around this. Like there's a lot, right, that drives a lot of that. And so that's like, I mean, who's winning there? I don't know, Facebook and
yeah.
Google. First of all, of course, extracting advertising dollars out of every
And
business in the world, beauty being one of
and
them.
the branding is so important. I mean, look at like I mean, people don't talk about this enough, and I feel like it's like worth looking into, like the Kardashians and Jenner and like how they just. I mean, like hats off. They have a smart team and whatever, but it's all the brand, and I assume the products are like pretty high quality from the same factories. It's almost like alcohol, but they're just branded so well that like they just crush. Like
No,
yeah,
I, c- I was gonna say I can't speak to like KKW in particular. If there's like Kim Kardashian, I'm not gonna be saying anything negative, but there are a lot of specific, there
sure.
are a lot of brands, of course, are influencer led and are
Yeah,
commoditized.
yeah,
The actual product is a
yeah,
commodity. It's
yeah.
just like you go to some, manufacturer and you're like, hey, I want this product. And they're like, oh, we'll like do a custom formula for you where it like, at the end of the day, the things you're really choosing don't matter that
Interesting.
much,
Yeah,
and then we're going to ship it out and it's going to be branded. And of course, like, but that's part of what you're selling with
yeah,
beauty. Oftentimes, right, is a value system from the
yeah,
brand. It's a story. It's an
yeah, yeah,
affiliation. Of
yeah.
course, it's a status symbol. There is real innovation. There is real innovation in beauty. Folks doing a really good job. I mean, I'll give Curology a shout out. People love Curology. Basically, you go out, fill out a questionnaire. They give you a custom
Yeah.
formula. It's usually a couple products depending on your needs. And I think that's an example of true innovation. And the truth is, like, I mean, it's really good work. It's not like, anything
Yeah,
crazy. It's just like, hey, these are the ingredients that we've isolated and that we understand address some of these things. And then we have enough of a like repeatable template or pattern to meet the specific needs of these customers. And in fact, I can share a little bit with FemTech Health. I mean, we're trying to actually provide solutions for needs. And of course, beauty is fun, it is delightful, it is about exploration, it is about discovery. That's a lot of what Birchbox has traditionally been. We don't want to lose that. But that is a key part of, I think, our mission at FemTech is to truly drive solutions that are going to make a difference for customers, help them, address their hair loss concerns, or help them address their dull skin, or help them understand what are the concerns that they should be spending money on versus
and be
not.
like super personalized, I assume.
Yeah, and I mean, just it's personalization is like something gets thrown a
Yeah.
lot around in beauty. It's like the thing's just for you, and it's like, and it's not to, that is
Yeah.
important, but what's also important is just helping customers understand what are, you know, um, just how they can start to address their concerns, and sometimes, even helping them understand what may feel like latent
Yeah.
needs, but are like real opportunities to address something, right? And it's not from the perspective of like, hey, here's like a really, really beautiful lipstick you really
Yeah.
need. It's more like, hey, have you started maybe having these particular signs or symptoms on your skin that might be speaking to, you generally being
Yeah.
dehydrated? What are the right products are going to address these, issues? And so it's a huge educational
Yeah.
component.
Yeah.
It's a lot of curation and personalization as well. But like there's, with that, it's the understanding that we're trying to really understand what beauty
Mhm.
means from the inside
Mhm.
out, and try and meet the customer where they're at there without really focusing on, I think, some of the more, again, commoditized brand and market driven aspects of beauty.
Super cool. Yeah. No, I mean it's a massive industry, and like I mean, like I would assume you guys are the only few Stanford or like tech people who've gone into it out of college, which is like super. I mean, like I think just like diving in, it's almost like consulting, diving in and learning it is exciting. Like learning about, and then like you said earlier, like creativity, like the definition that a lot of people use is like just analogies, and so you bring an analogy from like I don't know, some software like product to this industry. There's a lot of innovation that can come from that. Um,
Yeah.
uh,
Just one last
yeah,
point
yeah,
there. And a lot of beauty companies are run as a marketing first or merchandising first company,
um,
which is cool because, it's storytelling first. Oftentimes it's
yeah,
brand vision first. It's super important. But a lot of these companies aren't run like product driven technology
mhm,
companies that are trying to understand customer behavior and solve for real pain points, and that in and of itself is just a massive paradigm
yeah, yeah,
shift, right? Just that different way of thinking, and it's not to say it's better, but it's to say it's an approach that we like to take, right, and is a competitive advantage to an extent,
you
right?
don't think it's better, but you think it's needed, right? I mean,
It's it's certainly the approach that I subscribe
yeah, yeah,
to. It's not to say those other things aren't critical. It's just to say that it is a function of, or is a component of the overall product
yeah,
experience and the problem we're trying to solve for our
yeah,
customer, which can be a sense of belonging to a brand and a value system, and that's very meaningful. But it can also be more concrete needs being discovered and addressed, as it pertains to your physiological health and
yeah,
well-being, which beauty is, of course, a meaningful part
yeah,
of.
yeah. No, I definitely agree with that, and that's a good way of putting it. What did it say? Oh yeah, I definitely have to bring it up. I remember, Brandon, you were saying that you predict one day that men will wear makeup. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh man, I mean that's what do you mean? You need to clarify that because that's already
True.
true, right? I mean,
And
like
other,
what I mean that's already
yeah,
true,
yeah,
but
yeah,
the trend is going up. There's no question. Colored cosmetics and of course like all other sorts
yeah,
of products in the beauty categories, skincare, of course, like beard
yeah,
grooming,
yeah,
all these things, right? But generally too is like as a society, I think as we start getting towards you know the idea of like a UBI, universal basic
yeah,
income, and basically enriching ourselves as a society that is not needing to work necessarily 40 hours a week and can instead basically leverage technology
yeah,
and kind of our economic advancements to just basically spend more time in creative
yeah,
pursuits, higher levels of fulfillment, things like that. Yeah, I think we're gonna lean towards like using more cosmetics and things like that. I mean, it is an art. It's a form of self-expression. It's
yeah,
like these are types of things that you know um, are really near the top of the hierarchy of needs,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
think as we start getting in that direction, I totally see that. There's no reason to believe that. I mean, even if you think about, some people believe in these like, not post-apocalyptic, but like, future states where like humans are just like playing video games all
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And what are you doing with your video games? You're getting skins and you're doing all these things and you're decorating them and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
what, you
Yeah.
know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's, I feel like that's going to happen, but it's, yeah, I don't know. Metaverse is like an interesting topic. But no, but you're 100% right. And good point. And like you mentioned it earlier, but to bring it up, like hair prevention for men, like, most straight men, like, or just, hair loss, beard trimming. I mean, these like kind of masculinized, like beauty, like that's still beauty. And it's funny because that's become like, it's kind of like slowly creeping up that's like becoming more and more mainstream. Like Roman, like all these companies are coming out of nowhere. Like,
Yep.
there's a couple of them that do like, yeah, like trimmers, for like your body and things like that. That is becoming more and more of a thing. Yeah, I mean, even like there's like these like patches you put under your eyes if you didn't
Yep.
sleep well, and like men and women use them. So it definitely is happening. I know, like they always say, Asia is more ahead of beauty than like the West.
Yep.
But no, I agree with you. Be interesting to see how that becomes more. There's opportunity there. Even just like focusing on the male market, and catching them up to speed in a way.
Yeah, it's an interesting market. There are a lot of different segments of men in
Yeah.
beauty, and so yeah, and a lot of different parts are growing, like you said, like more, uh, you know, more like beard and hair care and things that,
Yeah.
are more classically in the like masculine
Yeah.
domain, more like skincare that's like men being like made aware of the fact that they should actually care
Yeah.
about the
Yeah.
health of their epidermal layer,
Yeah.
in addition to every other part of their body. And then there are more like kind of pigmented cosmetics and stuff that again are getting more to like the creative
Hmm.
expression, of course, and like more to like the artistry that, and a lot of those men end up being involved in the beauty industry. Not everyone does,
Yeah.
but so there are lots of different segments of men, and they're less kind of concentrated, of course, than the female uh,
Yeah.
segments, right?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
interesting to see that trend. Yeah, I guess one area about Mira that I know you're on top of this, like the data side, and I mean, like actually really relevant because I been kind of working on a couple of side projects, website stuff, and like growth hacking and marketing. People forget is an interesting topic that like a big focus is like traffic, like website traffic, and that word website traffic and webmasters and SEO and things like that seems so like web one. We're in like web three, about to be web three, but it'll always be relevant. But I feel like people forget about that. Like they forget about like what SEO and like traffic coming to your site and things like that. Until you get to the nitty gritty and like you're focused on that. Like Mira's business model was based all around like traffic, and yeah, I guess like what did you guys
Yeah.
learn from just like understanding and optimizing website traffic and that whole like realm?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, for us, I think we were fortunate enough to be able to fully align kind of our product and
Yeah.
distribution, which is, of course, always great when you can do that when our product is, predicated on being able to answer these specific questions customers have of us when they're searching something, or maybe they don't explicitly type it out, but they say foundations. What do they really mean? They mean, I want to see the best foundations, or I want to see the best foundations for my skin, or I want to see the best, long lasting foundations. And being able to have this rich taxonomy and understanding of the space allowed us to not only, and then when a customer clicks on the foundation, being able to say, here are all the things about the
Yeah.
foundation you care about. Here are like people with your skin tone applying the foundation. So us being able to address those customer needs to help them find the right product, it's the very same thing that helped us basically programmatically build, lots of content, hundreds of thousands of web pages that were basically, answering all these very
Yeah.
specific long tail and, medium and head, queries that people were entering into Google and then driving a shit ton of traffic. And then it's great because now once a customer has actually clicked on that link that says this is, the most non-oxidizing, let's say, foundation for X skin type, they've immediately kind of experienced the value of our business, which is the fact that we're helping you
Yeah.
find the right product for your very specific need. You're landing on that page, you're seeing what you
Yeah.
need, and then you click in. And I think that's what's really beautiful about the opportunity with SEO is human intent is never going to go away. I mean, again, maybe at the point where we're all just like zombies sitting in chairs and playing video
Yeah,
games, 200 years into the future or whatever, then maybe. But for now, while there's an economy and
yeah,
consumers are consistently buying things and there's intent, I mean, it's going to be there. And so, yeah, I think there's a massive opportunity still within that high intent kind of distribution
yeah,
space. And I think what's worth noting as well is that there will continue to be changes, but that SEO industry does not move as quickly as you'd think. Why do you see a bunch of, for example, recipe websites that just don't give you the fucking recipe, right? Like I looked up a recipe, it's like, why am I reading
yeah,
10,000 words of text before I get to the
yeah,
recipe? That's a remnant of some of the older kind of, black
yeah,
hat, SEO tactics. And so all to say, like, there's still a lot of opportunity there. Things are going to be moving and shaking. Google's always releasing, updates and things that they claim are going to be much more
yeah.
intelligent in terms of understanding how user needs are being met. But it's a rich space, man. There's so much opportunity. And when you can marry that distribution and product, I mean, that's magic, right? That's what you're looking for.
And no one's, I mean, even like a big part of that, which you guys touch, is affiliate marketing. And I've done a little bit of research. Like that's a massive space. No one talks about or knows. Like there's public companies. It's like Taboola. There's like a bunch of them that like just affiliate and affiliates are everywhere. And it's around content marketing, blogs, and then just like just CPA networks. Like these are things I had no clue about and that exist that run a lot of everything. I guess like how did you guys play with affiliates and like what did you learn about like the affiliate world?
You're saying driving traffic through affiliates, or you're saying more like doing things like backlinking and
like driving traffic and then getting, a fee or referral. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, we didn't spend a lot of time there because again, our focus was like on finding customers where they were at with affiliate. And there's of course opportunities. Someone is like, writing about, a blog all on like sensitive skin, solutions, then great. Then maybe that'd be a great person to drive traffic to like a sensitive skin, page or something that we had. But again, what we found best was really that, those long tail queries that we were able to build for super specifically. And then in fact, we'd use the affiliates or those external partnerships were really for backlinking, to be honest, and to drive a lot more traffic and some credibility, of course, to the pages. We did do some we did try some affiliate stuff. I mean, throughout our years, we did a bunch of influencer pushes and, we'd use some of these platforms where it's like you put out a prompt and someone, basically post stuff. And yeah, we saw some success there, but to be honest, it was just hard to beat the organic SEO. And then even the Facebook marketing at the time was just crazy because it's like you can target so well, vegan skincare for X concern. And that worked really well for us, actually.
Interesting. But on that, and I definitely want to talk about Miami, but are those so like two thoughts, like with Web3 and everything, and maybe this is out there, could you like better regulate internet traffic? Like, could you add like a blockchain layer in a way of like getting like almost giving credit to people visiting different like pages and like almost because I feel like the internet still, it's Web1, like traffic is just a mess. And like you guys are trying to curate traffic, right? But it's still just imagine the internet as like, a neighborhood and your people are just going to different stores and jumping around and all that. Like that is just a mess. That's so messy and like not really well accounted for. There's a lot of value that could be like shared, I guess. But like, do you think Web3 could impact like website traffic? And then also, what are your thoughts on like Facebook just getting too congested as a marketing channel?
Those are huge topics. We've talked about one, we're pretty excited at some point when we were thinking about that very thing. Like, what does it look like to, truly have like a proper attribution model leveraging the blockchain? And, to be honest, it's just like, basically it's a matter of centralizing on the decentralized protocol, right? So it's like at the end of the day, like while you have all these other players, like everyone kind of needs to be playing at least in the most, I think, obvious solution to me, and at that point, that's actually the primary problem to be solved anyways, right? It's just like everyone getting on the same page about some protocol. Doesn't matter what it is, just some protocol. And so I'm sure there are creative ways to actually inject that, but that's like the first thing that comes to mind is like, I think it's just generally tough. And I'm not sure if like literally just throwing on the blockchain, of course, is going to change it. But yes, I mean, there's much more incentive to get onto a decentralized protocol than for everyone to get onto an arbitrary centralized protocol.
I guess we had cookies as that form of it, but like I'm wondering, like, could you create a toll booth? Like, could it collect information in a decentralized way of which sites that you go to, and then you can benefit from that information? Because right now, cookies used to do that, I guess. Now they're kind of wiped. Like, it just seems like traffic goes from different points, and it's unorganized. It's still, you're still writing blog posts and doing like, sucks.
For sure.
And there only will be more and more traffic, right? There's more and more products. There's more and more destinations. So that's going to get even
more and more devices, privacy, obscuring that further. It's a complex system. You know, a lot of players with a lot of different incentives. But there's definitely opportunity to continue improving that, even if it's like within specific niches. You know, because there's so many different problems and so many different stacks that people are getting set up, and so I don't think we're going to see a single solution anytime in the near future, if ever. But I think we will continue to see more of these like specialized verticals for specific use cases and groups of e-commerce players and things like that. You know, they'll help them out. I mean, there's some cool stuff. I mean, I'm sure you've seen some of the out-of-home stuff that at least are turning like out-of-home into performance marketing, which is kind of tangential with what you're talking about.
Cameras or location.
Well, I mean, basically, you just have an advertising marketplace with placements on things like walls that they project, big messages onto, or like, whatever, an electronic billboard that they can like actually feed like real time, demand side, basically ads for, and then the way you track that is by basically using QR codes or something that gets a customer to actually pull out their camera and run through. And then, you get a sense of the most important, I mean, not necessarily, but like you can approximate impressions and then start to get a conversion rate. But then at the point where you at least get that like initial click-through rate, now you have a funnel, right? And that's dope because you can at least say, based on this click-through rate, do they actually convert?
I mean, the holy grail will happen soon where we connect the physical and the digital with like AR. Then that's going to be insane because then you can, that's gonna be crazy. Awesome. Well, no, I just think, I worked a little bit in ad tech, worked at Facebook, any consumer business, it's all about traffic and demand generation. I mean, people just don't, it's definitely complicated. But I definitely want to talk about Miami. So you were in SF and then you moved back. And obviously, I'm from Orlando, I'm from Florida. Heard a lot about like
we have no problem hyping up the South Florida.
I will say this, and I feel like people need to not to be like a sore loser or anything, but like people used to always shit on Florida growing up. Like, I don't know if you always got this, and then now it's like everyone's moving to Florida. They're like talking about like tech in Miami. It's like, and now they're like, oh wow, actually Florida's great. It's like you guys were kind of like now they're bandwagons in a way. But it is
100%.
I'm excited though for like our state to grow and people realizing also it's a massive state, tons of people. You can't stereotype a whole state, just like you can't stereotype. I mean, kind of can, but like you have Florida's very diverse. But it's cool to see Florida kind of in the spotlight right now. But I guess like how's it been coming back? Like what's the scene like? Definitely want to talk about that.
Yeah, man. I mean, so born and raised here. Unfortunately, weren't a lot of great technology schools in Miami. UM is a great biomedical engineering program, but besides that, it's just not that great. So went out to California, spent 10 years there. COVID hit. Happened to actually come back to work with my little brother through some stuff he was going through. Honestly, a blessing that COVID enabled me to do that, and also just shook the world and helped them realize, like, wait, you can work from like beautiful sunny Miami, Florida, right? And so moved out here, basically on and off for a couple of years. It's hopping around. I was in LA, was in Mexico, was in like Tennessee for a while. But point is, like, started around COVID, and then a few months back, I actually decided like gonna come settle in Miami for a bit because I was able to convince my girlfriend. Honestly, that was the only thing ever holding me back. But in terms of what's the scene like, I've been hyping up Miami since, the day I left. I love my city. I've always loved my city. It's a gorgeous city. I also happen to have an incredible childhood here,
Mhm.
having fun in the sun, enjoying the everything that it has to offer. I mean, just such a beautiful, beautiful, place. And then, of course, the nightlife and the food and all those things. It's just how could you
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
enjoy it, of course. And coming back, yeah, man. I mean, the experience is like one, I'm super proud, I'm super happy, I'm so excited about everything Francis Suarez is honestly
Yeah,
doing because I know it's a village, man, but this guy has just been crazy what he's been able to
yeah,
do. The visibility he's been able to give the scene, and a rising tide lifts all boats. So like, all these other people coming in and being bandwagoners, like that's going to be great for the state no matter
yeah,
what.
yeah.
But man, it hurts to see, you know, people that I can't help but feel like they're basically colonizing,
Mm,
like our city in a way.
yeah,
It's not as collaborative as you'd always think. There's some stuff I've seen with some prominent, Twitter figures and shit that just like are clearly, they don't. It doesn't feel like anyone gives a fuck about the local community, to put it
yeah,
bluntly,
yeah.
except for the local community.
Mm,
The people coming here are excited about their own shit, and
yeah,
that's
yeah,
great and whatever. But the point is that it does sacrifice to an extent the upside of the local community. Again, rising tide lifts all boats.
yeah,
Doesn't matter. It's good for us. Net,
yeah.
but it's tough to see and it hurts.
Like any examples on that?
Um, Miami Tech Week has been a thing for a long time. I'll have you know. It's a different thing
Yeah, yeah,
now. Uh, and my understanding and from what I've seen and heard is that relationship between an older and a newer Miami Tech Week was like really rough to get
mhm,
going, and was not, again, necessarily as collaborative as it should have
yeah,
been. It's also just clearly the case that when I see, all these people like making all this noise, it's like, I mean, you think it's like the little Cuban boys from Kendall? They're coming up and like, making a ton of money. No,
yeah,
it's like, you know, all these white dudes from San Francisco hitting deal, and that's great, because again, it's like rising tide lifts all boats. It's going to be great. I mean, one of the reasons I think that Miami is so
yeah,
exceptional as a new tech hub as well is because, man, uh, we have a massive untapped pool of talent.
mm,
We have, and I think we've chatted
yeah,
about this. We've had educated families, immigrant families that came from Cuba starting in the
yeah,
60s. Nicaragua, the Sandinista government, Chavez pushing out a lot of folks from Venezuela, in the late 90s, early
yeah, yeah,
2000s. Those families came to Miami with
yeah,
nothing as their basically governments, toppled over a lot of the social fabric that they,
yeah,
existed
yeah.
in. And it's taken them a while to really get on
It,
to, get back
and it could
on
be
the
a
train, right?
generational thing. So Kojo told me this. I don't know how true this is, but like, no, interesting that like it is a generational thing where there's a lot of like, there's not a lot. Apparently, there's a statistic that like successful people either usually have one, like know the language, like, and they're kids of at least one immigrant parent. So they have the hunger of
Yeah.
an immigrant and they know the language, so they're not like held behind by that. So it could be generational, but like, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, like Florida's was refuge for a lot of people, especially Latin America, and a lot of
Yeah.
hungry immigrants. That hungry immigrant, that's we proud. Like my mom's an immigrant. Like, I think we forget about that as like Americans. That's a driving force, and also another thing too, which I'm sure you know about, is like there's a ton of money flowing into Latin America in terms of the VC market and startup market, and like Miami's kind of like the headquarters for that. Seems like.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, Miami's an incredible just crossroads between LATAM, America, and Europe,
Yeah,
dude. I mean, how many of these like super wealthy, like, European aristocrats come to Miami and like hang out at, whatever club or what have you. I mean, there's just a lot of money flowing and it's an incredible port for like animals, plants, people, goods and services. Like literally everything is coming through Miami. I mean, in the 80s, I was definitely a port for all the bad
yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
so yeah, man, incredible talent. I mean, and so that generation of immigrants, their kids are
yeah,
now
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
of age. I'm kind of one of those, and are now like hungry and ready and have the hustle
yeah,
mindset and come from educated families
yeah,
but we're deprived of a lot of the systems that
Yeah.
exist in Palo Alto or Northern California or wherever,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, like, learn how to code in 2 years and
Yeah.
make like
Yeah.
$150,000 out of school at
And
Facebook.
you
It's like,
weren't in the country clubs and network. Yeah.
or even around that, or even aware of that. It's even different. Like, it's just like Miami is like third world country, man.
Yeah.
Like people are getting like croquetas and cafecito on the
Yeah.
corner, and like, oh, like I work for, my parents work for like a tiling
Yeah.
business or
Yeah.
whatever, and so it's just you don't have any of that awareness. Miami had none of those industries. The only industries it had, really, I mean, it's like, okay, tourism,
Yeah.
financial industry to an
Yeah.
extent, and because it's a headquarters for some of the, again, some of the other countries, nearby countries in
Yeah.
LATAM and
Yeah.
stuff, and then the medical industry. But beyond
Mhm.
that, it's like
Yeah.
nothing. No engineering, no hard technology, really,
Yeah.
or very little. So talent, incredible crossroads, and then just standard of living, man. I mean, it's
Yeah.
gorgeous. Weather, amazing food, gorgeous people. Just like it's a great place to be. So it's exciting. I think the opportunity to honestly educate this
Yeah.
workforce
Yeah.
is massive, especially in Miami.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like, especially if you're back growing up, in Miami, the whole thing, and going to Stanford, coming back, and like Silicon Valley trained, like I think there's so much opportunity for you, even like help the community grow. And yeah, I mean, part of me, I was conflicted. I was thinking about maybe moving to Miami instead of New York, and I, eventually I want to, it'd be cool to spend more time there. But no, I've heard great things, especially with like Web3 hype and all that. It's big. But the funny thing, you're talking about Suarez, it's true. He did a great job, because you have like Eric Adams, who's like the New York mayor now. Like he took his paycheck,
Following suit.
he just copied him. And so and I feel like I've never seen that before, maybe in a different way but of a local politician realizing that the cities are like companies in a way, and you want the talent to come and them kind of like marketing the place and being open to tech. I'd never seen that before. I mean, I'm sure there's instances of like General Motors in Detroit, and like obviously like Nevada and certain states give out money and like taxes back to companies to move there. But in terms of like trying to market people to come and talent, that's pretty cool.
Dude, it's inspirational, honestly, man. It's just like and dude, here's the thing. He doesn't actually have he has very little actual power, jurisdiction over very few things. Like the mayor of Miami-Dade, Casava she's like, the police force and the, fire police and all those people. It's like the infrastructure, like she actually has a, much bigger budget, much wider jurisdiction. He just got on Twitter, made it fucking happen. Money moves, like started getting people excited. And I mean, it's just incredible. And I think speaks to the energy here, dude. I mean, would absolutely encourage you to, come through and spend more time. I think it's a great city, great energy. I mean, I don't need to tell you, that. And back to the point you were saying before, it's like, yeah, man, dude, I have so many friends from middle school and high school. They're learning how to code right now. I'm like literally taking them through. And my brother, he was going through some like mental health issues, basically. Brilliant musician. Brilliant musician. I mean, went to Frost for music, like, was doing that till he was like mid-20s. And then basically at some point, came in, worked with him, and was like, hey, as you transition in your life, you may want to consider this career change. Dude, he went 0 to 125 grand a year, literally never coding before to that in like 17 months. And the guy's smart, but like it is not, it's a repeatable
It's
path.
education.
And once you go, it's not that difficult. It really isn't. It's a matter of like sit down, commit for like, if you have, and some people can't do it, not everyone can do it, but it's commit for 12 to 24, maybe 36 months, leap into a new socioeconomic thing. Like for the rest of your life.
And it's
incredible.
And it's very much like I was just reading it the other day, like the buzzword for it is like reskilling. And there's a lot of like VCs investing money in, I mean, a lot of companies being born in this space of the labor market's changed, right? It's creator economy. It's creating things, whether it's art, whether that's like a software, like just building things more, right? More people, especially in their mid-20s, who are right when they're flexible, even you can re-educate at any point. It matters just like on your your time, how much time you have. But no, I think it's education. And like about your brother, I think you're like, or just in general, I think like younger generations like are more adaptable. And you were mentioning this before. That's true. That education system. I want to maybe end with this is broken now. And I felt this personally where like, and you're seeing this right now where the fact that people have to go to coding academies or receive any sort of education after college, like demonstrates that college did not do its job. Right.
It's laughable. It's
Yeah.
The way I see it, man. And yeah, I mean, we didn't even get into the education stuff. This is like a honestly a big passion of mine is
Yeah.
like, just reinventing secondary
Yeah.
education. Blow away everything after like sixth grade. It's just failing these kids, man. It's just so silly. It's so silly, really. If you tell me, think if you gave me 30 kids for 2 years at the age of 16, and these kids were not like, and I mean, assuming these kids had relatively stable homes and were not trying to make my life a living hell, are you telling me in a couple of years you couldn't get them basically making six figures at whatever web dev shop doing React and Python backend? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, come on, there's so much opportunity and people are just.
And I think some kids are learning that on their own. And actually, I've seen this, and we talked about this, inspired me as well with my career. You have 18, 19, you have Gen Z kids who I don't know what the like reason for it, and people can make up reasons for why it's happening, but they're like learning. A lot of them are learning how to code on their own. A lot of them are selling like drop shipping. They're selling. They're getting into crypto. They're getting big on like the easiest, not the easiest, but they're becoming content creators, and like they're figuring out ways how to make money. And a lot of them are dropping out. I know tons of people who have not even gone to college are millionaires. And they're like under 20. I'm like, damn, like what, I feel like I'm just like, we're kind of at the point where we're seeing it, we're still able to adapt, but like, that's the new world. And that does tie in really nicely with the whole, like, universal basic income aspect where people were afraid of robots, everything getting automated. But in reality, like there are now more ways to make money and people don't want to work for companies. And the companies don't need those. And so it actually kind of organically is working its way out. Like companies want people to work for them. People, they're finding new ways to make money on their own as independent creators in some way. And those companies are then like, oh, wow, I guess we can just like automate the rest of this. And like, it's just this cycle that's actually working out pretty well, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. We're going to see, times have never been changing more rapidly. So and that will be increasingly true every year that we live, I'm sure. But yeah, we'll see. And the last thing I'll say is I think on the education front and everything that you're speaking to, I do think that's a huge market. I think there's no shortage of, I don't think that boot camps are the ideal situation, but we could use more of them. Go tell all your friends, go start a boot camp, man. I see all these dudes walking around like Miami and stuff, and I'm like, that is a potential developer. It's a limiting reagent. Me sitting down and talking to him and telling him exactly what he needs to do over the course of 30 minutes and him having the desire to, again, lift himself into, a new socioeconomic band, right? That's all it is. That's the limiting reagent. Conversations with people you trust and that because the path is clear.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Brandon, it's been great catching up. And I leave out questions on the future of what you're working on. I'm excited. I'm excited for this year to follow along. But yeah, I guess like, is there any other, you've been through a lot, you've learned a lot. I've always looked up to you at Stanford. Like, are any like pieces of advice, for anyone listening, trying to figure out their career, trying to navigate, life and all that you'd want to share?
Yeah, I guess the one piece of advice I, constantly come back to, and I received a long time ago, actually from a buddy, give him a shout out, John Yang Semataro, I think class of 2012 at Stanford. And he said this to me like years ago, was just like, you need to be disciplined enough to understand the things that you're really excited about, versus the things that you're afraid of missing out on. And make sure you do the things you're excited about. because that's what's going to get you up every
Yeah,
morning,
yeah,
and keep, get you pushing, keep you happy, keep you excited, keep you motivated, keep you in good spirits, which of course is, everything. Attitude is all you can control. And so, yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing, in other words, follow your heart. But, more specifically, don't kind of buy into the FOMO,
yeah, yeah.
because it can be short lived. And at least for myself, that's always been, advice that I've followed and has served me well. And then the other piece of advice, I'll give you one more. My dad gave me this. It's very simple, but it's crazy how many people have not internalized this. You need to learn what to expect from all the people in your life.
Mm,
At some point, when people keep disappointing you or frustrating
yeah,
you, it's your fault. It's not their fault. Right? It's like at some point they can only kind of give you the signal so many
yeah,
times, and it's on you to internalize that and understand again what to expect from different people, what your relationship needs to be like with different people. And I think the only reason anyone ever gets upset is false expectations.
sure.
So if you can set the right expectations, then you may not like what happens, but you at least have expected them
Yeah,
and can kind of plan accordingly.
and you're not repeating the insanity loop of just expecting the same. Yeah, so something different. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Those are two awesome pieces of advice. Well, Brandon, thank you again. Let's definitely stay in touch, and yeah, definitely try to make it down to Miami soon. But yeah, it's been great having you
Yeah.
on here.
It was awesome, man. Yeah, if you come down, please hit me up. We definitely got to go get some Dan Cuban food and some drinks and
Yeah,
stuff. It'll be a great time.
that sounds awesome.